From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornosky. So glad to have this time with you across the Sunshine State, coming to you live on FM and AM. Happy to have this time to unpack the news, to unlock the truth, and to share it as wide and as far as possible with everyone. And we're glad that many people continue to find our website, aneighborschoice.com, and make it their homepage for our podcasts, our editorials, and all the different things we're doing that we do each day here on A Neighbor's Choice. And so one of the things that we're following, of course, is the story about the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That's a big topic, and she was a powerful figure for many years and had a big impact in the direction of the state. But what's disturbing, of course, is the usual political fallout from these things where, you know, the left is just, again, doing what it always does, is just having a meltdown over everything. They just can't stand to have anything touch their precious cathedral, which is a state which runs every aspect of our lives, tells us what to do, tells us what we can do in every sector of our lives, our economy, and they have this zeal, which is pretty amazing to see. That's one thing about the conservatives, is they don't care. Typically, they're more casual consumers of the state. I think that the left is definitely the fundamentalist brand of those who worship the state. All things being equal, there's definitely a lot of fervent, big worshipers of state power on the right too. But you can just see, that they have this. They're calling for impeachment now, and it's pretty bizarre to see. If the president wants to have a nomination of a Supreme Court justice, that is such a defilement of their sacred state for the left and the politically correct, that they're going to have to impeach him again. I mean, they're breaking, Trump is dismantling and destroying every sacred cow of their whole massive state apparatus. It's pretty amazing. They put him in the impeachment the first time, and they're like, this will get him, and he just broke the machine. He made it ineffective. Nobody even thinks about it. Used to be impeachment was this huge thing. And some would say perhaps it should be a huge thing, but because these people in the TV party have used it in such a flippant way on such a, politically incorrect individual, he doesn't play the ritual right. He doesn't take the shame. He doesn't accept the guilt. Therefore, it breaks and falls back in their face. And they're out of toys. So now they're like, well, we'll impeach again if you do your job as the Constitution says and appoint a justice. Because they want to intimidate people. They want to cheat and lie and steal to maintain their attempts of power. And the right is not much better, if at all. But the problem is, at least on the right, you can have a conversation. At least you can have a conversation. And I know there are some great left-wing folks, but they're not given the platform of conversation in the same level that you can have a more diverse, independent political thought take place on the right, unfortunately, or what's called the right. The right just means that you're not worshiping political correctness and postmodern Foucault and all this stuff. That's with critical race theory and intersectionality. So we have a situation where people are, they're just at their wits' end. And you have there's a article out on the National Pulse as Transition Integrity Project founder calls for execution of former Trump official. This is out today. Niels Gilman, the founder of the so-called Bipartisan Transition Integrity Project, called for the execution of former Trump administration national security official Michael Anton, in light of Anton writing critical about the group's efforts to steal the 2020 election and secure a victory for Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden. Yeoman, who served, I'm reading this article from Natalie Winters, Gelman, who serves as vice president of programs at the Chinese Communist Party-linked Berggruen Institute, took to Twitter to express his desire that Anton be executed in the same fashion as Robert Brasillach. Specifically he insisted, Michael Anton is the Robert Brasillach of our times and deserves the same fate. Brasillach was a French author and journalist who was executed in 1944 by firing squad for using his various platforms to advance Nazi collaborationism and anti-Semitism during World War II. So I mean, this is the kind of vicious violence that's starting to seep out. And you're seeing the failure of the elitist class and their ability to maintain their decorum and their, veneer of being very above the fray and very, nonviolent. No, it's all ugliness. It's always been ugly, brutish, sniveling, grasping at power for these folks and the bipartisan Washington establishment. And they just can't handle the thought of someone like Donald Trump, who is in some sense like Mr. Toad from Wind in the Willows. You're going on Toad's wild ride with Donald Trump because you don't know where he's going to go next. And they can't stand having someone like that in their sacred hall of power. They want someone who will stick to the script. When there's a new pandemic coming out, you don't come out and say a generic drug could help like Trump did. That's not sticking to the script. The script is bought and paid for by the people that put these hacks in power. And the script is, we need a patentable drug. We need a new drug that can be patented that will make obscene profits. And science is not going to allow for scientism is what it is. They always say science. What they mean is scientism, which is pseudoscience. Scientism is their marketing brand that they use to try to gaslight and bully people into always waiting for new patentable medicine to be brought to market. You can never research generic or natural supplements or generic drugs like Z-Pak or things like that. No. The only thing that works for a new virus is a new conveniently patentable drug. Isn't that funny how that works? And these people have the audacity to tell us that they are the humanitarians, that they care about the people who are suffering. They couldn't care flip. They don't tell you a single thing about how the comorbidities that are affecting people the most with this virus these are comorbidities caused by the food pyramid that the establishment wants to continually expand and increase the power of that kind of way of nutrition, which has failed people utterly in awful, lethal ways. So going back to the top of the story, everybody's talking about, the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and these moments of our time are showing people how much folks worship the state, how much they worship in awe and adoration this kind of way of dealing with things, of having kings and queens have the ability to map out our lives for us, to tell us how to live, how to think, how to function. That's a sad thing that we can't have a conversation with sane, rational minds at the forefront, with ethics at the foundation of what we do. When does anybody ever talk about ethics anymore? Why are we always focused on we have to have one judge or 9 judges that will decide the fate of our whole lives? This is a failed religion that we've created here. That was never the intention of the founders. They never intended to have a far-off court decide such awesome power of every little aspect of our lives. And because people are addicted to tyranny, and because they have abandoned God, because they have abandoned ethics, because they have abandoned common sense, they can only see false idols all around them and pretend that those are gods. That if we can have the right judges or the right president or whatever, that somehow those people will save us. Save us from what? Doesn't matter. It's just an irrational primitive desire on the part of millions of people owned by herd mentality, owned by a hive mind that just calls out, give us a king, give us a king, give us a judge king, give us the right one. And they've been raised in our culture that the way you have power is to pretend to be a victim or use politically correct, fancy, soaring rhetoric about victims and then be violent and ruthless as all the presidents have been. But Trump doesn't play that. Trump is politically incorrect. He is vulgar. He is brutish in his language. He's coarse. He says what's not supposed to be said. He says what's supposed to be unseen. He destroys the power of language to hide the violence of our establishment deep state in terms of the permanent bureaucracy that is unelected, that continues to expand its influence and control in crooked ways all over our lives. Not just in foreign policy, not just in our surveillance, not just in our food choices, not just in all of our choices of healthcare. They involve their tentacles in every aspect of our life, and Trump doesn't really cut the spinning very much, but at the very least, he speaks in a way that reveals the ugliness underneath the clean language of politically correct language. And that's something no president has ever done. And that's why he is a heretic for these people who worship the state, because their religion depends on the state being sold to them as this squeaky clean cathedral or religious institution, this temple that will be the salvation of mankind. And it's just a lie. It's a false god, and it's crumbling under the weight of its own lies. We'll be back live on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornosky. Stay tuned for more. I'll be back in just a moment. David Gornosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. The madness of 2020.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Get it straight from Chris Plant.
They're so hypocritical. It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
This has just got me going off.
And the left is waging war against the police in the United States.
Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point.
You're a voice of reason in the sea of idiots.
The Chris Plant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHPO.
Not ready to go to your favorite seafood restaurant? Get the highest quality fish for less, delivered straight to your door by Fast Fresh Seafood. Order our fresh hawk snapper, grouper, mahi, and more. They're boneless, skinless, flash frozen the same day, and individually vacuum wrapped. Pick the size filet you want, the amount you want, and checkout's easy at fastfreshseafood.com. The best thing, every fish is on sale. Fastfreshseafood.com. Caught fresh for you, delivered straight to you. Stay home and stay safe.
Our monetary system is failing. Negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, and the dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option. Monetary metals. They pay interest on gold in gold, with no storage costs ever. Visit interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm David Gronowski, your host. And, you know, I look at the shrill viciousness, the nasty nature, where you can't go on campus and say anything if you don't believe in the bigoted, violent ideology of leftist coercion and control over our lives and control over speech and the ripping apart of free markets, the last vestiges that we have of them. And you can't do that. You can't, if you want to, say anything or dress in a way that goes against their vicious, narrow, hateful ideology. They try to terrorize you, hit you, hurt you. And it's just, we have to come to a society where we can say, we're all going to reject this behavior. You can have your values. You can have your beliefs. But you're not going to sit in a situation where you're going to act in a violent and aggressive bullying way. You're not going to, we have a society that these folks have become so consumed with voting for people who want perpetual war. And that if they don't get their warmongers in office, they want to go to war against their neighbors. You notice that? They're so sad that Hillary Clinton, who cackled at butchering the country of Libya, this thriving, relative to other countries in the region, was thriving. They had a lot of economic things going for it. Bad dictator, just like many others are the ones that the Clintons and Obamas and so forth have supported. But like mafia, they said, "Time's up. We want a new guy in our neighborhood over here. We're going to install chaos." And people on the left, their whole thing is they want to have self-righteous feeling over other people, right? So my whole thing is don't give them that fantasy. Tell them the truth. You're mad that you voted for a person like Hillary Clinton who bombs people of color in Libya and Syria. And you knew she did that. You knew her whole life was based on war and drone strikes and sanctions that starve. You knew that. And you still bigoted, in a bigoted, nasty way, endorsed and hired her to keep it going. And because you did that, it tears you up inside. Because you want to feel self-righteous and you want to feel better than other people, but your actions speak louder than your rhetoric. You can wear every slogan you want, but your actions speak louder than your rhetoric. These folks on the left are going to vote for a guy like Joe Biden, who's the architect of mass incarceration. But that's okay because he's on their team, so they mindlessly, it's like they don't even have is there a conscience there? Is there anything that's awake? How in the world can you reward a man who spent half a century locking up everybody for nonviolent stuff, expanding the predatory regulatory state into every person's life, affecting those who are poor the most? And how can you say that you're a self-righteous person who hate has no home here kind of thing, love trumps hate, all this nonsense, and then support a man who spent half a century locking everybody up, bombing everybody around the world, sanctioning and starving children around countries all over the world that his donor class tells him to? And that's got to eat them up inside, because the number one thing the left seems to thrive on is self-righteousness, that they are morally superior to their neighbor. So take it away from them, kids. Let them know the truth. That just because someone uses politically correct language doesn't mean you get to atone, that absolves you of the violence they're promising to do based on their track record and based on what they literally promised to do. Joe Biden and the DNC promised to continue a warmongering policy. That's exactly what people like Senator Kerry said at the DNC. That's exactly what Kamala Harris's friends are signaling when they come out and say, "Oh, she's a Harry Truman Democrat." What's that mean? Harry Truman, the guy who bombed Nagasaki with thousands of Christians? Doesn't matter who they are. You get the point. That's a warmongering Democrat. That's a Bill Clinton. That's a Barack Obama. Warmongering, same status quo. They want that back. And it's got to eat them up inside that they are presenting themselves as one way. Oh, we are socially just, those of us on the left. We are better than you. but they know they're not. They know that they are sellouts because they keep voting for mass incarcerating, bailouts for the banks, regulations, the destruction of promising cures because of the destruction of free markets in medicine, the destruction of promising solutions for pollution because of the destruction of freedom in research for clean energy. They have destroyed everything that they say they're for. Because what ultimately is the problem? When you rely on the worship of the state rather than the liberation of free people to solve problems, when you rely on state coercion and say, I want a state who will sacrifice people that I don't like and sacrifice people for the greater good, you can't make that work. Jesus destroyed it 2,000 years ago. He said, it is finished. You can't sacrifice your neighbor and get what you want. It won't work. It'll blow up in your face. And people who keep turning to the state to manage their life, to manage their speech, to manage their protection of their self-defense, take away their gun, take away their speech, take away their property rights. People who rely on that have a dogmatic, fundamentalist adoration of a superstition which Jesus has long ago dismantled on the cross. They believe it is better that one man die than the whole nation perish. People who believe in a state that runs our lives, that they can sacrifice people in Libya so that the whole nation perishes. Or lest the whole nation perish, I should say. They can sacrifice our economic freedoms. So what? They can save the planet, but it doesn't work. Everything that they promise, I will save the planet, I'll sacrifice some with the Green New Deal regulation complex, and it'll create clean energy. It never does. Or they'll say, I'll sacrifice some of people who want to do alternative medicine with a heavy regulatory state. I'll sacrifice some, and we'll find out how to, we'll have a government healthcare provide solutions for all our diseases. And does it do it? No. We're still in a war on cancer since the 60s. We've tried it that stupid old way of using government to sacrifice people at will for some kind of greater good, and it never works. And so what you're seeing right now with people flipping out, losing their minds, is that they're losing their religion. Their religion is losing its credibility, and they can't function. And we have to have compassion for these folks. But we're not going to let them push us around and try to throw us in the sacrificial machine anymore. We need to just say no. No more sacrifice. No more perpetual status control of our society. No more sacrificing unborn children by the millions. You can't do that. No more sacrificing our children by sending them off to endless wars. No more sacrificing our neighbors for nonviolent crimes. It's kind of come to an end, and we have to do it in a peaceful and quick manner, or else this whole thing's going to unravel. It's our time to fight for our freedoms, folks. We'll be back in just a moment. A Neighbor's Choice returns in just a second.
You know what time of year it is.
Hurricane conditions in the next 36 hours.
You know what hurricanes can do.
Devastating damage expected.
Well, we want you to know, no matter how bad things get,
Power outages. This is life-threatening.
you can stay up to date with the latest information here. Your home for news, talk, and information. And remember, we'll keep an eye on the tropics. You keep an ear on us.
Got batteries in a flashlight.
The all-new News Talk 1040 WHBO.
Yeah, we got our radio set.
President Trump says he's vetting 5 female judges to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg. He'll announce his choice at the end of the week, and he wants the Senate to get right on it.
Well, I'd much rather have a vote before the election because there's a lot of work to be done, and I'd much rather have it. We have plenty of time to do it.
The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer pushing back.
By every modicum of decency and honor, Leader McConnell and the Republican Senate majority have no right to fill it. No right.
Ginsburg will lie in repose at the Supreme Court on Wednesday and Thursday. On Friday, she will be the first woman to lie in state at the U.S. Capitol. The president's campaigning in Ohio this evening. A federal judge says absentee ballots in the battleground state of Wisconsin can be counted up to 6 days after the November 3rd election, provided they're postmarked by Election Day. Stocks tumbled worldwide on new worries about COVID-19. The Dow fell 510 points. It had been down about 900 points. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Hello, David Gornosky here. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. Soaring high across the Sunshine State on FM and AM. We return now. And one of the themes that I talk about a lot on this program is skin in the game. How if you want to talk about, having clean energy, then put someone on who's actually doing something like in nuclear fusion, not just a talker who wants to take money and somebody else's money and use it. And the same thing goes for our wars and foreign policy. There's a lot of folks that talk a big game about they want to go around the world and do this and do that. They want to put Starbucks in every place around the corner of the Middle East. At the end of the day, it's all about skin in the game. Who's going to actually execute it? We want to hear from those voices. And so we're going to start a new series now. I think it's just going to be phenomenal with a friend I've gotten to know over the years. He is the founder of BringOurTroopsHome.us. It's a great organization led by veterans. And our guest is Sergeant Dan McKnight. How you doing?
David, good. I'm doing really well, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's great to hear from you because this is our inaugural launch of a new Veterans Radio series we're going to be doing as a part of this program. And we're going to do it on a weekly basis because, man, is there a lot of stuff going on in foreign policy, and I don't think it's getting enough attention, do you?
I agree. I think the number one issue in the election this year would be ending the endless wars in Afghanistan, and it's just not cracking the top 10 on the major networks.
Yeah, and it's because a lot of the major networks, they seem to be kind of in agreement with keeping our troops over there. But your group is kind of the opposite of that. It's BringOurTroopsHome.us. Tell us why you started this group.
Sure. A little background on me so that we can get to know each other on the airwaves. I'm an Idaho native and a graduate of Boise State University. I'm a 13-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps Reserves, the United States Army, and the Idaho Army National Guard, and I served in Afghanistan from 2005 to 2007 and retired after 13 years due to injuries that I sustained. I'm a business owner, a high school football coach, and recently the founder and chairman of BringOurTroopsHome.us. And what Bring Our Troops Home is an organization made up of right-of-center veterans. So there's always been organizations from the left, veterans, Vote Vets, Veterans Against the War in Vietnam, and groups like that. We're different. We're right-of-center veterans, and we're working to influence local state legislatures, national United States Congress, and even the executive branch to be more refined in foreign policy and matters of war. And Bring Our Troops Home started kind of on a coincidence. When I was in Afghanistan in 2005, as National Guard troops, we had a hard time getting supplies, basic stuff, boots, uniforms, gloves, goggles, things that soldiers need to maintain safety and to be able to accomplish the mission. And nobody wanted to claim us as National Guardsmen. We were part of 82nd Airborne and 10th Mountain Division, but nobody wanted to help us. And so we were kind of on our own. And my chain of command had exhausted all their options as far as the supply chain was concerned, and they were frustrated. And I was a non-commissioned officer and the leader of soldiers, and I took it upon myself personally to make sure my men and my soldiers were protected. And so I grabbed a satellite phone, David, and I've told you this story. And I climbed to the top of a little mountain deep in the Pesh River Valley in the northeastern quadrant of Afghanistan, got a clear signal, and called a friend of mine back home who put me in contact with the governor's office in Idaho. And I called the governor, and a man named Jim Risch answered the phone. And I said, "Governor, this is Sergeant Dan McKnight. I'm one of your National Guard troops. I'm in Afghanistan. I hope I have your attention." And I went on to tell him what the problem was and asked him, as the commander-in-chief of the Idaho National Guard, to do something to help us get our supplies. And he told me, he goes, "Dan, I've only been the governor for a very short period of time. I was appointed to be the governor. I was lieutenant governor, and I filled a vacancy. I don't know what I can do, but I'll do something. And we hung up and ended the call. And 48 hours later, I received notification from my chain of command that Governor Risch had done his job and our supplies were on the way. And so I always held him up on this pedestal as a great man, supporter of veterans, a man of integrity, a man of his word. So we fast forward to 2019, and Governor Risch is now Senator Risch from the great state of Idaho. And Senator Risch, through his good work in foreign policy, has now become the chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. He's the second or third most powerful man in the entire country in matters of foreign relations. And I got tired of seeing my brothers and sisters going back to war over and over and over, 6 deployments, 7 deployments, 8 deployments. I was tired of seeing the body bags come home, the coffins with the flags draped over them. I was tired of my friends coming home broken, destitute, divorced, bankrupt. So I thought I would reach out to my friend and the man that I respected, Jim Risch, one more time. And so I asked Senator Risch what it would take for him to support ending the wars and bringing our troops home. And he made a policy statement in Boise, Idaho when I asked him. He stood up in front of the Chamber of Commerce and he said, Dan, I'm with you. I remember helping you. I'm with you. I agree. We are done with nation building. And since that time, Senator Risch went back to Washington and did what senators do, and he voted 3 more times to extend the war in Yemen and Afghanistan and Syria. And I felt like he wasn't really doing his part like he said he would. So I started a conservative veterans organization called Bring Our Troops Home to influence Senator Risch and all the other Republicans in Congress to support President Trump in his campaign promise from 2015 that he was going to be the man to end these ridiculous wars in Afghanistan. And since that time, David, you went with us. We went back to Washington, D.C. and took 100 veterans, state lawmakers, and some friends that support us, and went back to D.C. and met with our congressman. And we happened to go there the day, I'm sure you remember this, the day that the impeachment hearing started last November.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we were able to get a lot of meetings with our congressmen and senators, but we were not the number one topic of the town. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. That was quite a sight to see that, all those veterans. Yeah, that was amazing what you guys put together there. Tremendous.
Yeah, it was a great event, and we weren't able to really accomplish everything we wanted. We got some lip service, we got some meetings. Two of our members went into Congresswoman Liz Cheney's office and asked her the same question. They posed it a little bit differently. They said, "Will you help us bring the troops home from Afghanistan?" And she said, "I don't think I can support that." And they asked her a direct question. And this kind of defines Washington, D.C. in a nutshell. They said, "Congresswoman, when would you support the troops coming home from Afghanistan?" And she said, "Never. We need to keep them there forever." And that was a blow to our psyche, really, that here is the number 3 Republican in the House who is saying that she's going to keep our troops in Afghanistan forever. And so we decided it's time to do more. And we've built this organization, and we've gone all over the country, and we've added thousands of members. We've been on radio, TV, Fox News, CNN, Russia Today. We've been on major television networks and newspapers, and now we're coming and starting this radio program, this segment with you, David. And it's an honor to be able to do this. And I would love to talk a little bit more about what our organization's mission statement is and what we believe in. And then we can get into a little bit of topics of the day, where we're at in the troop reduction, where we're at in the ending of the war, and things of that nature. So I'll hand back over to you, and you tell me when it's okay to kind of come back and talk about our mission statement.
Yeah, anytime. You know, well, you're a veteran, you're a sergeant. So tell us, what is your mission? You know, you got to have a mission if you're going to accomplish something. If you don't have a mission, then you don't really know where you're going. And I think that's kind of the problem with our wars, isn't it?
It is. If you don't have a mission, then you can't really have a strategy. So let me start with the mission, and then I'll explain what we do what we believe in to order to accomplish that mission. Bring Our Troops Home is dedicated to ending American involvement in endless wars in the Middle East and bringing our troops home. Further, we are committed to advocating for a change in U.S. foreign policy that does not automatically default to military intervention. We believe that the military should not be the easy button for foreign policy. And finally, we insist that the Constitution of the United States be respected and enforced, requiring a formal declaration of war by Congress, which is mandated by Article 1 of the Constitution, before the U.S. military may legitimately be deployed. Now, that's our mission. But what we do to execute that mission is kind of our belief statements, and they're a little bit more in depth. As veterans, we've all volunteered to serve our nation, right? We've placed our lives in front of our countrymen and men and women in defense of liberty, and we protect the Constitution of the United States, and we believe in the defense of this nation against military invasion, subversive acts, and terrorist aggression is a proper constitutional power and responsibility of the federal government. We believe in providing for the common defense. We believe that a modern and efficient military is vital to our national survival. This is key. This is the difference between us and those far left anti-Vietnam War era hippie protesters that came home. We do believe in a modern and efficient military. The military should be capable of prompt and overwhelming response to any attack on the United States or our citizens. And we favor a reasonable Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and even a Space Force powers, including all anti-ballistic missile defense systems. So that's what we believe in that. We also believe in foreign military action only, David, upon a declaration of war by Congress and in the face of clear and imminent threat, which is prescribed, as we both know, in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the U.S. Constitution. We believe that before our military men and women are sent to fight in a properly declared war, there must be a clear strategy for entrance into and the conclusion of any foreign engagement. So how do we get in? How do we get out? We oppose the exercise of the Executive War Powers Act, which gives the president the ability to commit troops overseas, except in the face of immediate and direct threat to the United States. And we oppose any treaty or international agreement that puts American troops under the control or authority of another executive or administrative power. And we believe in a state-supported National Guard. We believe the National Guard is for the defense of the United States of America. We believe that the best military must be comprised of volunteers, so we oppose any draft registration or conscription. And finally, we believe in the individual American citizens' rights as defined by our Constitution that include the right to assemble, to form movements and demonstrations, to the freedom of the press to hold each of us accountable, and to the right to keep and bear arms as the ultimate reserve for repelling an invasion or tyranny. And we've raised our hands and sworn an oath to this. These aren't new things. You can find this buried in the Constitution if you just take the second to crack it open and read it. So, Dave, that's who we are. That's what we believe. That's our mission. And the way we're going about doing it is by recruiting like-minded individuals all across the country.
Well, I think we have one of those individuals with us, and I want to bring him into the conversation now. And he's someone that I got to know at your event. He's been active in the military for over 21 years. He's a senior fellow and military expert for defense priorities. He was deployed in combat zones 4 times, beginning with Operation Desert Storm in 91, Iraq in 2009, and Afghanistan twice, both in 2005 and 2011. He was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for Valor at the Battle of 73 Easting in 91 and awarded a Bronze Star Medal in Afghanistan in 2011. We have Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davis with us. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me here. I'm really happy to be on this show.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here, too. And I thought that's a fantastic way to kick off this new series with Sergeant Dan McKnight and I to have you on. And there's a lot of things going on in the news, but I wanted to get your take, both of you guys, on what this Abraham Accord is. You know, it was a huge thing. You didn't hear the media talk about it a lot, so maybe folks at home right now listening are saying, yeah, what was that all about? Trump signs this peace accord, and it's got this whole complex of things around it. But what is this first? What is the Abraham Accord for folks who didn't know about what this was about, and what is the significance of this? Let's start with Danny Davis.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction for sure. There's lots of people that are looking to throw rocks at it and find flaws in it and weaknesses and things that it's missing, et cetera. And maybe some of those are valid. But the bottom line is this is moving directly, expressly towards peace. And I think one of the central themes of the accords between Israel and the UAE is that it's not just something on the surface, but it's actually pretty encompassing and has some pretty lofty objectives and values that I think most of us would, actually, all of us would really support and get behind. The key passage is this. It says the parties undertake to foster mutual understanding, respect, coexistence, and a culture of peace between their societies in the spirit of common ancestry, Abraham, and the new era of peace and friendly relations ushered in by this treaty, including cultivating people-to-people programs, interfaith dialogue and culture, academic, youth, scientific, and other exchanges between the peoples. In other words, this goes all the way through. This gets to the heart of, a lot of the problems we've had ever since the insurgency really kicked up in Iraq in about 2004 to late 2003. Then it kind of turned into almost a religious war between, Islam and some people in the Christian faith or maybe in the Jewish faith. Well, this gets to the heart of that and says, hey, we want to foster more cooperation because, Christians, Muslims, and Jews all have that same common ancestor of Abraham. And so there's some commonality there. And anything moving in the direction of peace, I think, is to be encouraged and expanded upon.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
It hasn't been reported about the details much. Sergeant Dan McKnight, what's your take on this deal, Abraham Accord?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to recognize, and Danny, it's good talking to you, by the way. The most important thing to recognize is that the signers to this treaty are the United Arab Emirates, a Muslim Arab country, Bahrain, a Muslim Arab country, Israel, which is a Jewish state, and then the United States is the facilitator. I mean, the fact that we brought Arab Muslims together with Jews to sign a peace deal is monumental. And what it will do ultimately is secure and stabilize the Middle East, which will ensure that America doesn't have to send troops back to fight in somebody else's civil war and religious conflict.
So you see this deal as having some real teeth to it, some meat.
It does, and I think we're going to see other states sign on here real soon.
It's more of an aspirational situation. It's got a lot of things that have to happen. It's not got any hardcore provisions to it. But, I mean, you can't get to those difficult things unless you start off first with the movement in the direction with a goal and objective specifically for peace. So I agree wholeheartedly with Dan. And also, Dan, it's good to see you again, too. I'm really happy to be here with you. And I just, I hope that they continue going on and include other Arab nations and any other countries in the region. Anytime you can expand the opportunities for peace, you lessen the possibilities of war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's something you don't hear a lot of media championing it, and they act like they're socially just, but you'd think peace would be a number one topic to get social justice going, But Sergeant Dan McKnight, do you see this as something that will have a lasting impact in lessening troop deployment over there, or do you think it's a wait and see, or how do you see this?
It needs time to foster and to gain strength and support. And one way that we're actually doing that is you see President Trump is doing he is ushering in peace in an era of war. Like the Doha deal, he's bringing troops home from Afghanistan. Iraq, we're down to 3,000 troops. The Abraham Accord, between those three nations. All these things it's synergy. It's built, success breeds success. And once these nations start to realize that the peace that comes from these deals, I think other nations are going to flock to it, and it will be the movement du jour. It'll be cool again to have peace. When was the last time we've said that?
Yeah, it's something I think this country's starving for. Let's take a quick break. We're here with Sergeant Dan McKnight of BringOurTroopsHome.us, also Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davis of Defense Priorities, and we'll be back in just a moment. We want to learn about what's going on with the Doha deal with Afghanistan. Are we going to come out of there? What's next? What can we see? We've got a lot of folks listening right now who've got family members involved over there and soldiers over there, and their lives are directly impacted by this. So let's see what we can expect when we return on this new Veterans Radio segment on Neighbor's Choice. We'll be back.
Politics these days are just that, politics. Pathetic discussions about things that don't matter, while the pandemic, crime, and economic disparity march on. That's why you need a balanced approach to news, business, and entertainment in the state of Florida. That publication is newstalkflorida.com. Whether it's the White House, the courthouse, or your neighbor's house, News Talk Florida has the sources, articles, video, and audio that will be a must daily check-in from your laptop or mobile device. Take a look at newstalkflorida.com. Today's news and entertainment with a Florida slant.
David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Our monetary system is failing. Negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, and the dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option, monetary metals. They pay interest on gold, in gold, with no storage costs ever. Visit interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornosky, and we're doing our Veterans Radio segment. It's our new series we're starting, where I get to sit and talk to some of the great veterans involved around the country in the cutting-edge research and information needed to know where's the best direction for our foreign policy. What's the future? What's the foreign policy which puts America first, right? Which puts our interests first, which is based on the Constitution. To do that, I'm joined by my friend Sergeant Dan McKnight of BringOurTroopsHome.us, and we're joined by a special guest today, Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davis, who joins us now, having been deployed overseas in combat zones 4 times, and Dan McKnight as well. I wanted to ask you guys, both of you, what is the latest deal with Afghanistan? You know, we hear things, but it's always something's being kicked down the road, the can's being kicked down the road. So let's start with you, Sergeant Dan McKnight. What is going on with the Afghanistan deal?
Sure, I'm going to defer. I'll give a quick answer. I'm going to defer to Lieutenant Colonel here. I know the Doha deal is moving forward despite everybody in Washington and the military-industrial complex doing their best to fight it. I believe we're down to 4,500 troops, but I think Danny probably has a better response. So, Danny, what do you know about the Doha deal's current status?
Yeah, see, I got a couple of really important points to talk about here, especially in regard to the agreement. The things that were agreed between the United States and Taliban, all it did, it's commonly referred to as the peace agreement. There was no peace agreement. In fact, almost all it did was start a process that would allow the Afghanistan country, the government, and the Taliban to begin negotiations to try and end the war. Now, I recently talked with, actually just a few days ago, with the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee of the upper chamber of the Afghan parliament, and asked him, what is the process here? And he's like, okay, well, I'm optimistic. I hope this will work. I hope that this eventually results in peace, but it's a long process, and it's going to be painful. It's going to be difficult. And, of course, he's optimistic it's going to go. I mean, what else can he possibly do? But here's the issue for the United States. We cannot commit ourselves to continue to stay there until, or the hope that at some point they finally figure out some kind of a deal. our participation in this war needs to come to an end right now. Now, Trump has been talking, has already reduced, as Dan just mentioned here, potentially somewhere down to around 4,000 within just the next few weeks. But I'm encouraging the president to continue going on down that path to get all the combat troops out of there, because we need to get our troops off the table, because that's not in America's national security interest. And the parties to the conflict are the ones who have to figure out how to make this thing work, because they're the ones that are going to live for the rest of their lives in this area. And the faster we get out of the way, the faster they're going to be able to make the hard calls and the hard choices to end. And I want to point out one other thing, too, because people often say, well, you can't get out of there, because if you do, number one, there's going to be a new 9/11, because then, Taliban and Al-Qaeda and all these other people will be able to launch attacks against the United States. But then also you'll just be sacrificing the Afghans, and they'll be, their government will fall in all this. There's no guarantee that if we leave that things are going to be better or that they're going to individually win. I'll say that right off the top. But as the Afghan parliament member told me the other day, they're doing all the fighting right now. I mean, all of it. All we do is help in a couple of areas here and there, do some training. But they're already carrying the full brunt of the battle. They'll continue to do that. They're not going to go away as long as we kind of help with some of the finances. He did say that we need that. But in terms of the fighting on the ground, they got that right now, not in the future. They have it right now, and they'll continue to have it. But the last point I'll make, and then I'll kick it back over to Dan, is the idea that if we leave, there'll be a new 9/11. That is a gross misrepresentation of reality. Number one, the first 9/11 didn't happen because of Afghanistan. It happened almost incidental to it, because the primary place, the terrain that would matter for the attack was the twisted mentality of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of that attack. And he was actually doing things all over the Middle East, in countries like Sudan, in Pakistan, some areas of Africa, etc., all over the place. And Afghanistan was just a convenient place for him to stop for a short period of time. And our continued security from all terrorist attacks, whether in Afghanistan or anywhere else we don't have troops, is because of our very aggressive, our global ability to project power, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and then make direct strikes, just like we did with al-Baghdadi. We didn't have any troops on the ground there either, but we conducted that because we have the ability to do it. We'll keep having the ability to do it. Our country will be safe no matter what we do with troops on the ground in Afghanistan, but we'll be keeping our troops safer and quit sacrificing their lives for nothing.
Dan, any last thought?
Danny, thanks for being on with us on our first show. And David, I look forward to doing this every week from here on out.
Yeah, there's a lot of information, guys. Really good stuff. And it's time that we hear from veterans on a regular basis on our broadcast airwaves, our public airwaves, FM and AM. I'm excited to see the things that we can learn and that we can share with the public as we turn the tide from the failed foreign policy of the past and build a 21st century foreign policy that keeps America safe. So thanks again for joining us. I'm David Gornosky. BringOurTroopsHome.us is their website. We'll see you tomorrow night. Godspeed.